Let's begin with Serco. The private prison operator is to pay $8 million to corrections after the government department took over the management of Mount Eden Prison in July of last year. You'll all remember that. The payment, which is the largest ever made to a government department by a company contracted to work for them, was accompanied by an apology. But for what exactly? Because while Serco is apologising and handing over money, it's also in the High Court disputing aspects of the report from the Chief Inspector of Corrections into their management of the Mount Eden Corrections facility. So what did Serco apologise and pay the $8 million for? To try to find out, I went along to the media conference held by Corrections Chief Executive Ray Smith, and the voice you'll hear answering first, the Chief Executive of Serco Asia Pacific, Mark Irwin. $8 million, you're writing out a cheque for $8 million to the...
Yes, we are, and we'll be paying that to the department in the next month.
$8 million?
Correct.
And was there negotiations? Did the Crown go after more initially? Did Corrections go after more initially? Was this an agreed figure that you settled on after a toing and froing? How was that reached?
Yes, so it was reached through a process of mediation, and ultimately, obviously, as a consequence of that, it was by mutual agreement.
And who was the mediator? Who did that work?
Well, I think in terms of mediation, those are processes that are kept pretty tight. We don't talk about what happens in those, which allows parties to be free and frank about what they think needs to be resolved. But what we have done, because we think it's in the public interest, is to be clear about what the outcome of that mediation was. So the $8 million figure, I'm very satisfied with. From my perspective, it settles up appropriately what was owed throughout this last period of the contract.
Okay, there's been lots of toing and froing and lots of frankness, and the decisions outlined are separate, it says, in the Minister's statement from the Chief Inspector of Corrections report into Serco management, which is currently before the courts. But you're standing here today admitting liability, telling us you're paying $8 million and apologising. So how are you still disputing the Chief Inspector's report? Why are you still before the courts? I mean, you're falling on your sword here today, aren't you?
What we've indicated through this agreement is a path forward to manage the prison through the remainder of the transition period. What I've apologised for today are those aspects of our service delivery which fell short of what we committed to deliver. The processes that are currently before the court are independent of this and does not affect this agreement.
But they relate to exactly the same events, aren't they? I mean, you're paying $8 million. Effectively, it's a fine for exactly the same events, but you're still disputing the Chief Inspector's report before the courts. It seems very odd.
We've made clear that the payments made today are in relation to the department's step-in costs. As you heard Ray say before, they are in relation to performance notices, which are a normal part of the contractual management relationship that we have with the department, and any other contractual monies that we're owing to the department. What is before the courts is consideration of the process that was undertaken to ultimately conclude on that report, and I think we need to be respectful of those processes.
But why did the department have to step in?
It was the department's decision at the time to step in.
But you're admitting, aren't you, that it was the right decision? You're apologising. You're paying them $8 million. Why did they have to step in?
It was not our decision. It was the department's decision, and we are contractually working for the department, so we respected that decision.
Okay, but you respected the decision to the extent that you're paying them $8 million, so clearly it was the right decision.
We paid them $8 million because as a consequence of that decision, they did incur those costs, and we believe it's the right thing to reimburse those costs.
When this all expires in March 2017, are you going to bid for the contract again?
We don't know. We don't know whether this will come to market again. That's a decision for government, and once that decision is made, we will assess at that point.
Are you clearing the waters here so you can re-tender for the contract?
As I said, we don't know what will happen in terms of the future.
But someone's got to run the prison, right?
Yes.
I want to be careful about the fact that Mark has acknowledged that there are things that they wish they had done better in this prison.
What are they, specifically? What do you wish you'd done better?
Again, I can't go to the details of that at this point until the inspectors.
Except this is really eccentric, isn't it? You're paying $8 million. You're standing here apologising and falling on your sword, but you won't say specifically what you did wrong.
Only in order to be respectful to those processes. Obviously, as soon as those processes have been concluded,
you're appealing the process,
we will be speaking.
But there's no respect for that. You have no respect whatsoever for the Chief Inspector's report. You've taken it to the High Court. You're appealing it. I mean, this is an odd way of displaying respect. Isn't this about relationship building with Ray and Corrections?
It is, but it's also about following due process. And in terms of the Chief Inspector's report, we've made clear in our appeal to the High Court the basis for that, It is not related to the report as it's finally presented, but in relation to the processes that were undertaken to get there. That's as much as I can say at this point, for the reasons that these matters are still before the court.